Act 2. My friend the devil. Louis has just informed Billy he must get a move on to visit the wayward deviant prince. Louis tells Billy that although he is having a great old time talking to Billy, but he really had better get a move on and visit the wayward deviant prince that he was supposed to be seeking in the first place, to clue him up on what was in store for him when he gets to Better Land. He's another one that thinks he's gotten away with all his deviancy and perceived privileged arrogance. But I have decided in this case that I am going to interfere and frighten, yes, scare and worry the shit out of him for the rest of his life. Mind you, the whole family is a bunch of privileged oddballs when it comes down to it. Louis tries to be as complimentary as he can when he tells Billy that he doesn't know the reason why, or even understand why of all the creatures or beings in all the universes in existence, why he is so drawn and fascinated with the lowly, ungrateful, undeserving reprobates making up humankind. But there it is, he says. It must be the devil in me after all. Ha! Billy now admits that Louis's visit has been a blast for him, not just an outright shock. Although he tells Louis that he is gobsmacked from what he has heard. Billy asks again if Louis is trying to trick him and buy Billy's soul. Again, Louis swears that he has no need to, as he assures Billy that Louis's old man was far too strict as to allow the likes of an ordinary Billy or his ilk into heaven, but Billy would be made more than welcome when he did eventually go to Better Land. It is at this stage that Billy asks Louis if he knows how long Billy has left to live. Louis tells him yes. But he asks Billy if he really wants to know. It would certainly have its disadvantages. Billy changes his mind quickly and says no. Forget about it, Lou. I'll take my chances. Louis informs Billy that he can relax, as he is destined for Better Land anyway, where he can be assured he will be treated as a guest of honor. Up until then he can do anything he likes, as long as he doesn't get caught. Reminding Billy of an old phrase, God helps those who help themselves. But God help those who get caught helping themselves. Same old blarney and hypocrisy as ever, comments Louis. Another thing, Louis continues. I find it amazing how many of your people profess that they would like to meet the old man, but they don't want to die to do so. I'm sorry to say that prayers, begging, or pleading to the old man will get you nowhere. Once again, we don't think or feel like humans. No favor, no pity. So why bother? You only get upset and are disappointed when you don't get an answer. Put it this way, says Louis. Two Christians are standing outside a bookie's office. One guy says, Hail Mary, full of grace. Let our horse, 3 legs, win this race. The other guy says, Our Father, who art in heaven, please let it win at 100-7. When an old priest passing by overhears them and adds, It's no good praying to the Holy Ghost, because that old nag will get left at the post. Billy goes on to say that one of the biggest things that he must contend with is wondering why God appears to let such cruelty and injustice take place so frequently on earth. Louis informs him that his old man is not responsible for that. The hate and aggression that is widely used by some humans on other humans are the responsibility of individuals. It usually appears to be through jealousy, greed and avarice. The quest for power and control. All human traits. All as equally dangerous as the next. This appears to be a major problem for mankind to be able to overcome. It is the beast within all humans, to be instinctively antagonistic and confrontational. Plus, there are those who are merely spiteful. Take King Herod, the despot, for instance. The one who ordered the killing of all the children up to the age of 2, because they may have been a future threat to his dominance and power. And his equally vicious wife, who called for the head of John the Baptist to be brought to her, fresh on a silver plate. There is no end to them. But never mind, says Louis. I'm going to leave you with a little present, Bill. Just a small token of friendship for you and your housemates as a sort of no-catch, no-trick compensation for the screw-up in my coordinations and scaring the shit out of you. I'll tell you what. What would you most like? And as they say, William, be careful what you wish for. Billy replies, Well, I don't know, Louis. There are so many things when I come to think of it. Louis says, I tell you what. He invites Billy to look behind one of the couches in the lounge room. When Billy goes to check what is behind the couch, he finds 3 large suitcases. He drags them out into the open lounge room and asks Louis what is in them. Louis tells him to open them and have a look. Billy starts to unzip one of the suitcases and gasps in genuine surprise when he sees that the suitcase is filled with bundles and bundles of new dollar notes. Shit! He screams in delight, grabbing a handful of money and shaking it, even going as far as kissing it and smelling it. He dances around and says in a husky voice like the character Gollum from Lord of the Rings, "Ooh, my precious. My lovely, lovely precious." A Few Bars of Money by ABBA starts playing. "Louis, how much money is there?" Billy asks. "Oh, more than a couple of million in each suitcase. One for each of you residents," replies Louis. "Plus, you will find a red book inside one of the suitcases that has the names of all of the future Melbourne Cup winners and other valuable information that could be worth more millions to you." "Oh, wait until the boys find out." "Thank you, Louis." "Thanks a million, hey. You're a bloody legend, Louis, mate." With a smile on his face like a shark chewing entrails. "You're the best," says Billy. "You're simply the best." By Tina Turner starts to play. Billy starts dancing around and singing along to the track.
I call you, I need you, my heart's on fire. You come to me wild and wild. You come to me, give me everything I need. Give me a lifetime of promises and a world of dreams. Speak the language of love like you know what it means. And it can't be wrong. Take my heart and make it strong. You're simply the best. Better than all the rest. Better than anyone. Anyone I ever met.
Louis then tells Billy no problems. "Spend it wisely and make it last," Louis advises Billy. "For sure," Billy responds, stuffing the bundle of money back in the suitcase. He can't help but. Louis says that he really should be getting along, as he is running late and the old boy, pointing to himself, is going to be expecting to wake up before long. "I really would like to hang around a lot longer having a yarn with you. You're a nice guy and a good listener. There is so much that I could tell you or explain to you. You really would be amazed. But as they say, there is no rest for the wicked, hey?" He has a giggle. And then there is the tyranny of distance to keep in mind. After all, it's a long way to the shop if you want a sausage roll. Akadaka, hey. Love them, I do. I'm not wishing them bad luck or misfortune, but when they do get to better land, as there's very little hope of them getting into heaven. The old man can't stand rock and roll and all that goes with it. Debauched racket, he calls it. Whereas I love it. The beats and the vibe. Well, can you imagine the holiday guests' reactions to seeing them play? They've got as many fans in Betterland as they have on Earth. I can't help myself. I'll be watching every concert that they play. I don't expect to get very much done when they do. I tend to like their old-time rock and roll. Old-time rock and roll by Bob Seger plays.
Just take those old records off the shelf. I sit and listen to them by myself. Today's music ain't got the same soul. I like that old time rock and roll. Don't try to take me to a disco. You'll never even get me out on the floor. In 10 minutes
Okay, my old son of a gun, says Louis. I really must take my leave now. Shake hands and to have a little friendly hug to say goodbye. While Louis has Billy by one hand, he drags him into a short waltz routine while he tells Billy that he can now say that he had danced with the devil and it wasn't that bad an experience after all. Still want to go to heaven, do you, Bill? Or are you one of those people who imagined that they could sell their soul to me, for whatever reason? Louis asks. Then hey, let's do a deal right now, why don't we? He suggests. Nah, says Billy. Who knows? I might eventually become good in life and change my ways. I might give heaven a second thought first. Billy then asks Louis about the crucifixion and its ending. Louis tells him that Jay didn't die. He was given various drops of a vile-tasting liquid mixed with a very strong drug to severely sedate him via the vinegar buckets the Romans kept close by at crucifixions as a personal and pleasurable form of entertainment to them, cruelly taunting the victims by pushing a soaked rag or sponge full of vinegar on the end of a spear hard against their mouth so to force the liquid into the mouth to offend, but would be swallowed on instinct when they were desperately gasping and gagging for a drink or any liquid intake. A devotee of Jay had taken the opportunity while remaining unseen by the bored and distracted guards to pour some of the drug into the bucket, knowing the Romans' habits. This was an unexpected span in the works. Jay was oblivious to this activity. If he had known about it, he would have done his best not to let it into his mouth so it would eventually appear that he was dead. The puncturing of Jay's side with the tip of a lance to try to establish if the heart was beating, as there would be a flow of blood from the small wound that had not allowed the spear tip to pass through Jay's compressed rib cage due to his fading strength to try to stay upright as much as he could in order to breathe. However, because there was only a small smear of blood and another transparent fluid on the spear tip, the Roman guard had interpreted that Jay was indeed dead and authorized Jay's taking down. Can you just imagine how he was feeling? Louis and Billy stared at each other and contemplate the track and its symbolism. Don Let the Sun Go On Me by George Michael plays.
I can't lie, no more of your darkness. All my pictures seem to fade to black and white. I'm growing tired, and time stands still before me. Frozen here on the ladder of my life. It's much too late to save myself from falling. I took a chance and chased you away all life. But you misread my meaning when I held you. Close the door and left me blind.
and then seeing him revived from his coma-like state by some dedicated followers and supporters while in the tomb using the anti-drug potions and herbal remedies priorly stored in the tomb as allowable funeral items that were available to them to be used after followers had broken into the tomb. Evidence that can be found today but is overlooked. The metal pins that had been driven into the cliff face of the tomb to hold the securing chain that would hold the circular stone slab in place for the duration of Passover. After continuously being doused and covered with a very strong acid to help weaken it. Then brute force was brought into play with consistent strong rapid-like action being employed using lump hammers and chisels to eventually snap the holding pins. This took place over a couple of days of continuous effort. The circular stone tomb covering that had been rolled into place was forced over the very shallow retaining gutter and fell directly in front of the tomb. It is still there today. In situ. A couple of meters deep under the soil and fill that has fallen or been placed over it, and over time permanently covering it. Yet, for some reason the Jewish Antiquities Board or Bureau will not permit or authorize any digs or excavations of the area. The small crew of Roman guards assigned to keep an eye on the tomb were easily distracted by Jay's followers with bribes and offers of free food and wine, and the services of some of the local prostitutes. When questioned by their senior officers, they only received a light scolding for their inattentive monitoring of the tomb. The Romans put it down to a form of ritual Jewish grave robbing act, no more. The beginning of the Ghostbusters theme plays. Although Jay was highly angry and overwrought with the outcome, as he thought that he had died and fulfilled his obligation. As bitter as the pill was, he had to accept it and swallow it. And leave it up to the old man to sort it all out in his way. At this point Jay was ready for the big I'm out of here move. He had come to accept that his future health and security could only be achieved if he relocated to a far-off region where he wouldn't be known or recognized. There would be no rejoicing in the glory days. As Bruce Springsteen sings. But what about his ascension into heaven after he had appeared to various people? Billy asks. Louis tells him that Jay was full of very strong opiates at the time, and he could walk and move about unaided without recognizing or feeling the physical pain. The wounds and injuries were fresh, but he could not feel pain until much later when he was weaned of the opiates while in a safe and privately cared for isolated location and recuperation clinic cared for by some followers and devotees. And a couple of physicians to monitor the recovery, including administering the initial pain-killing treatment. During this time of rest and recuperation, Jay was strongly and continually advised to quietly leave the area and travel afar, as the Romans would be infuriated after hearing rumors of Jay's supposed resurrection. Because they had been deceived. They would certainly vent their anger. They would surely kill him and want to have the absolute, unquestionable evidence of his death before them this time if he were to be caught. Billy asks. But what about the ascension into heaven? There was no real mystical ascension. It is all in the translation. Louis tells him. Jay's sect of religiously motivated friends and relatives had seen what they had in their interpretation of the ascension into heaven. But it was not mystical. There was a building in their desert compound that was recognized as their church or temple. It had an upper level that had a flight of stairs that led up to the rostrum for the speaker, often in use for practicing various sermons for the high priests. This area was referred to by the sect followers as heaven. This is what was meant when the witnesses declared that they had witnessed Jay ascend into heaven. After appearing to certain individuals, including Thomas, the doubter, and showing them his fresh wounds. The last reported sightings of Jay were when he made his way up to the rostrum by the set of stairs leading up to this area called heaven, to make a practiced and rehearsed speech to his small community, before leaving the area covertly forever. Nobody saw him again after he had finished, and everybody had left when he slipped away into hiding again. No mystical ascension into heaven took place. Louis adds that Jay's human ashes are still in the earth in the India, Himalaya region, where he eventually died as a mortal man on his travels and cremated on a funeral pyre as was the custom of the region. But not teaching Christianity, just love and peace. Working as a carpenter. Smoking hashish and spreading good vibes and such before re-entering heaven. Okay, then Billy asks, what's the go on you visiting Jesus when he was fasting in the desert for a month, and you trying to tempt him with this and that? Didn't happen, Bill. It simply didn't happen, says Louis. I knew it would have been a waste of time. Jay wouldn't have weakened or caved in for me or anybody else. and with respect. Jay was like your Muslim brothers, inasmuch as never being able to be out-believed or out-worshipped in their Islamic faith. Let me tell you, he could be really stubborn at times, and a bit violent when he wanted to be. After all, he did beat the shit out of the money changers at the temple, didn't he? He went as far as using a whip on them. Purely human reaction that. As far as having any visits from, or conversations with me, it never really happened. Jay was laying into the hubble-bubbly hookah pipe something woeful at the time, full of large lumps of hash in each cone, blissfully toking away continuously, something ruthless to help him deal with his situation. He didn't know his ass from his elbow, or shit from honey most of the time. His thoughts were all over the place like a madman's turds. How many hallucinations he may have had, I don't know. Jay can't remember or recall, but he had followers who would secretly bring him food and water, even wine. When he returned from his desert sojourn, he had hardly lost any weight. None of the people who knew him had picked up on it. The normality of his size and weight and appearing in such healthy vigor after such a grueling period. Apart from the odd snide remark that the worms, grubs, and insects must have been plentiful and okay. The increasing number of followers believed that it was miraculous, adding to Jay's reputation as being the true Messiah. What was the go with Judas, then? Asks Billy. Oh, Judy. Louis says, impersonating the actor Cary Grant. Now there is a guy who has been as badly vilified as I have been. Judy was a real pal of Jay's. Unlike common belief, he was only trying to assist Jay in his endeavor to complete his intention of assuming the responsibility of being punished for mankind's sins. He knew the path Jay was on and supported him thoroughly. He was Jay's most avid supporter, and he slung the silver pieces he was given away. He had played his part in Jay's plans, leading the Roman arrest squad to Jay in the Garden of Gethsemane, which Jay knew of and wanted to happen. It had all been planned since the Last Supper. Jay could read his apostles like a book. He knew who was strong and reliable and who was likely to buckle under pressure, especially when it came to a threat to life for being a follower of Jay's. They were normal men of the time who had their beliefs and their fears. There was never any incident of a Roman soldier having his ear sliced off by a follower of Jay's, then miraculously having it reattached to the soldier's head. More added dramatic fiction. Such an act would have been recorded by the Romans, and it wasn't. If they thought Jay had miraculous powers, they wouldn't want to kill him. They would have tried to utilize his powers in their favor. Oh, and just one more point of interest is that Judas did not hang himself through guilt as commonly believed. He was attacked by followers of Jay's, beaten to death for his perceived treachery, and was thrown over a deep desert rocky outcrop embankment to rot away. And, hey, his skeletal remains are still there today. Scattered maybe, but still lying about covered by sand. If you searched in the right place, like they did with Tutankhamun, then you would find him. Yeah. It's the things that they don't tell us that interest me the most. Billy says. Talking about Judas flinging his 40 pieces of silver away, says Billy. What about the gold then? Louis asks him what gold. Billy tells him the 3 wise men's gold. I wonder how much the gold was worth that one of the 3 wise men had given Mary and Joseph when they visited them in the stable. It must have been worth a few bucks. Oh, I can tell you about that, says Louis. It all goes back to when Mary and Joseph were ordered to leave the sect compound to go and live in exile for their hanky-pankying and playing mummies and daddies too early. They were allowed to marry first so that the baby would not be illegitimate. When they eventually arrived at Bethlehem and found shelter in the stable, nothing new to them. They only had a donkey and some meager belongings. When the 3 wise men who were true believers heard the news that the Messiah had been born and they had arrived on the scene at the stable to celebrate and congratulate them for the birth of Jay. And you must admit that following that star was a great move. It is just going to show you what a great star system you have, Bill. Great for navigation. What about your sci-fi writers? Having a ball being inventive. Star Wars. Lost in Space. Star Trek. Etc. Great stuff of the imagination. And you never know how far you can take it. After all, as Mr. Paul Kelly, the Australian master wordsmith and songwriter sang, From little things, big things grow. From little things, big things grow. Anyway, when the three wise men had taken their leave, the myrrh and the frankincense that they left as gifts were sold on very quickly, as they were pretty skint. As for the gold, well, that was worth quite a few bucks. Yep. A fortune to Mary and Joseph. But they were constantly terrified of being robbed and assaulted for it. Paranoia got the better of them. It was used as a bribe to Jay's radical sect hierarchy to let Mary, Joseph, and Jay back into the sect compound to live. It didn't go very far once all the sect's members got some each. But it did get them back into the compound to live with some sort of protection. It also helped in paying for the food and table wine for the whole commune for quite some time, as fresh foodstuff had to be brought out to their lonely isolated desert compound away from the nearby towns or city. Although they had access to some meat, cheese and milk. Goats mainly. And fowl. The lack of arable soil, being at a minimum, wasn't enough to provide enough vegetation for them. And this was costly. And the sect would need to survive for a long time after Jay's departure. They at least had a well and a small spring flowing through the compound for their water needs. It wasn't long after they had returned that the story of Mary's dream and perceived immaculate conception started to take root and become the accepted explanation for Jay's arrival. Sort of, is everybody happy? You bet your life we are. Atmosphere. Surely, Bill. You must have heard about the Jewish people and others who are very careful and protective of their money. There was said to be a Jew and a Scotsman who had a bet for $50 to see who could stay underwater the longest. The two of them drowned. But then there is their knowledge and know-how to take into consideration. Such as Jaime and Moisha having a chat over coffee. Jaime is telling Moisha that he had just had a fire at his warehouse and the lousy insurance company only gave him $2 million in compensation. Moisha tells Jaime that he knows all about insurance companies. He says that he had a major flood at his warehouse and the insurance company only paid him $6.5 million in compensation. When Jaime asks Moisha, how do you start a flood? Then there is the story of Jacob. Writing his last will and testament. He wrote, to my useless, bone-idle, layabouts and handbag of a son-in-law, David, who always said that I wouldn't mention him in my will. Well, hello there, David. Yeah, Lou, I've heard the stories, says Billy. And what about the donkey? Billy asks. What donkey? Asks Louis. Mary and Joseph's donkey. Well, what was its name? Replies Billy. Louis answers. Donkey or Ned? I don't know. Why? I'd have to check that out myself with Jay to see if he can remember. Well, I presume that it was their only mode of transportation and how long they had owned it. And who knows how many loads it had carried for them. Including either Mary or Joseph at times. You would think that they would have given it a name as a small sign of appreciation and affection, wouldn't you? They were supposed to be into love and affection and showing appreciation. Weren't they? Even Steptoe and Son gave their horse a name. It was Hercules. Billy suggests. Billy asks Louis, seriously, if there are any souls in better land who Louis thinks really shouldn't be there. Louis replies yes. Millions. Every soldier who killed somebody in any war or conflict. Etc. Then there are some who were absolute gentlemen. Proud patriots merely performing a service for their government. Such as Albert Pierrepoint. The #1 British executioner for a couple of decades. You could not wish to meet a nicer, more sincere and considerate gentleman. But he was involved and instrumental in dispatching an official count of 460 people. Alas, once again, killing is not allowed by the old man under any circumstances. That's the rule. And no equalization will be entered into or considered. End of story. Then again, Albert does get to enjoy his holidays. He likes to hang about. Nah. I'm only joking. Just a pun. He likes to potter about, have a little drink or two, and perform little ditties and songs for folks. Billy asks Louis if he is prepared to tell Billy who killed President John F. Kennedy. Louis tells Billy that it was the person who fired the fatal headshot. The who, why and how is all there in the official American archives. Official secrets. Not for publication. I'm not going to interfere, change, or rewrite your history in any way. Least of all, naming the officer responsible. But the individual responsible for taking the fatal shot is in better land and is well liked by many. Not because of the action he took, but because he was a true, sincere, American patriot. Highly decorated war hero. Special Operations and National Security Officer with the highest security clearance. Acting under instructions from his superiors after being approached and specifically invited to volunteer for the mission, as nobody could be ordered to carry out such a mission. It had to be on a voluntary basis. At the same time, believing that it served both God and his country. Billy asks Louis, if mankind doesn't wipe itself out, then how long will mankind go on and exist for? Including future space travel. Louis tells him that if Billy recalls what was explained earlier, the Big Bang events, then it doesn't really matter how long. Again, Louis explains. Time has no importance or use in the great never never. It is a means of measurement and recording for mankind only. As when the sun depletes in its flammable gaseous make-up state, exuding radiation waves, including light, long before it completely expires, with its unquestionable destiny waiting. Eventually, all forms of life, animate or inanimate, within the range of the sun's beneficial reach and relying on its energy will cease to exist and be. Then the remnants of the universe will just become flotsam and jetsam and be swallowed up in the great big endless jelly. Billy asks Louis what the bottom line is in the meaning of things when it comes down to the purpose of the Quad God Squad and their overall existence. Louis answers him, with the greatest of respect, Billy. As long as your asshole points to the ground, you will never be able to fathom out or understand it all. Don't bother trying to. It will only scramble your brain. Just try and deal with what you must deal with every day. Billy asks Louis one more question. He asks Louis if he has any other good, useful advice to give him. Louis says yes. Most definitely, old mate. Never wipe your ass with a broken bottle. He bursts out in laughter. But remember most of all, Billy my old China. Comments Louis. If you want any children of yours to follow in your footsteps, then be very careful where you place your feet. Billy asks Louis if it would be possible to get in touch with Louis from time to time. Louis tells him that it would be like trying to contact Elvis. Calling Elvis by Dire Straits plays. Louis points to his ear indicating listen and mimes to the track. Louis then admits that he likes to get out once in a blue moon, but he really does miss his normal existence and is looking forward to going home. Going home from the Rocky Horror Picture plays, and Louis mimes to the track.
On the day I went away was all I had to say. I want to come again and stay. Smile
Then without further ado, Louis disappears in a puff of smoke like his arrival. After calling out Louis's name a couple of times and realizing that Louis had gone, Billy is ecstatic. He calls out loud and confident, "There's going to be no holding me back now." Billy is absolutely exuberant. He is busting with joy and anticipation of what his newfound wealth will do for him, and all it could mean to him. He is full of elated emotions, ready to explode. He checks the money once again. He starts dancing and jigging. He stashes the suitcases out of sight behind one of the couches. He calls out loudly in excitement, "Oh, I haven't had as much fun since I burnt my teacher's wooden leg." He starts to sing version of Ken Dodd's Happiness. "Oh happiness, happiness, this brand new gift that I possess. And I thank Louis that I've been blessed with more than my share of happiness." He is experiencing a justified ecstatic state that he blurts out his expectations full of vim and vigor. "Oh boy. Am I going to party from now on? No more being chained to the wheel." Chained to the Wheel by the Black Sorrows plays. Billy starts to enthusiastically chug along to the track, miming and playing the air guitar.
Know what you really need, but you can't get enough. Too many mouths to feed. Well, ain't life tough? Call this survival. Don't pray for a sign.
Know what you really want. You can't get it back down on the waterfront. Better watch out, just nuts on the main line and rust on the rail.
I see them spend less time. I see them tumbling down. I see that river, fire and steel. I feel the thunder, take to the wheel. Know what you mean to me. Goes deeper than that. Can't find your destiny. Know where it's at. Don't look for lightning. Or pray for a sign. I see them spend less time. I see them tumbling down. I heard the legends. I watch the sky. Feel the power, flame in your eyes. I see that river, fire and steel. I feel the thunder, chained to the wheel. Chained to the wheel.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to buy myself a house. Nothing too flashy. I don't want to stand out. I'll get a new car. No, I'll get two. One for four-wheel driving, camping and fishing, and for towing a new boat or caravan. Then I'll get myself a real nice drive car. I don't know what sort yet. I'll get myself a classy wardrobe of clothes. No more looking like a scarecrow or a tramp. I'll take good care of mum and dad, that's for sure. And all my close family can have a taste. All the things I've dreamt of and wished for if I won the lottery. I should start a little business just to keep me interested and involved in things. Hey, and you never know. If I can splash the cash, I might attract me a good-looking Sheila. I suppose I could try and link back up with my ex, Rose. After all, we are repetitive when it comes to getting together and breaking up all the time. Harley and Rose by the Black Sorrows plays. Billy contemplates while the track plays.
Harley and Rose were reunited. This time they said it was for real. She'd take him back to where it started. He would melt a heart of steel. Life is a bitter disappointment. She would hear young Harley say, have you found something more important? I will not stand in your way. Like static on the dial, and love comes back in style. Holly and Rose, they just lost it for a while. Holly claimed there was no lover. Nothing blooms this time of year, while Rose was thinking of another. She did not see him disappear. Like static on the dial, love comes back in style. Holly and Rose, they just lost it for a while.
It doesn't harm to be well-heeled and have a little brass in your pocket, he says. Brass in Pocket by the Pretenders plays, starts to mime and dance provocatively to the track.
Got brass in pocket, got paddle, I'm gonna use it. Intention, I'm feeling mental, gonna make you notice. Got motion, restrained emotion, I've been diving, detour leaning, no reason, just seems so pleasing. Gonna make you notice. Gonna use my arms, gonna use my legs, gonna use my style, gonna use my side step, gonna use my fingers, gonna use my imagination. 'Cause I gonna make you see there's nobody else here, no one like me. I'm special, so special. I gotta have some of your attention, give it to me.
I wonder what the boys are going to do with their share. Oh yes. I can just imagine it. Party time, here we come. Life in the fast lane for a while, I guess. Yeah, baby, says Billy. It's going to be a wild ride. I can just see myself heading for Las Vegas to have me a little flutter in the casinos. I can just picture it now. Feeling like Elvis. Viva Las Vegas plays. Billy gets right into it with gusto, dancing and shaking and twisting his hips as he mimes to the track.
Coming out.
21 winner. Come on, baby. Thank you. Thank you very much. Y'all still want me to come with you?
There's a whole lot of money that's ready to burn. So get those stakes up high. There's about 30 women that's waiting out there. They're all a living devil may care. I'm just a devil with a love to spare. Viva Las Vegas! Viva Las Vegas!
Hey now. Thank you very much.
How I wish that there were more 24 hours in the day. But even if there were 40 more, I wouldn't slip a minute away. Oh, there's blackjack and poker and a roulette wheel, fortune won and lost on a heavy deal. All you need is a strong heart and
I can see myself now, going crazy, getting amongst it all. Yes. I've heard all about it. The dangers of living life in the fast lane. I'm going to have to keep a close eye on myself. I do tend to party hard. He then settles a little and says, but then again, it will be just lovely to lay back and enjoy a bit of paradise for a change. Billy flops down on a couch to contemplate. Billy then gets stuck into smoking a heap of dope cones one straight after another in succession through the bong. He lets out a loud yawn and an elated arg sound. He then leans back and crashes back into sleep. The set goes dark for a minute. The song What a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong plays. 7 a.m. arrives. A loud proud rooster shrieks off stage. Morning Town by the Seekers plays.
Train whistle blowing makes a sleepy noise. Underneath their blankets go all the girls and boys, rockin', rollin', riding out along the bay, all bound for morning town, many miles away. Driver at the engine, fireman rings the bell, Sandman swings the lantern to show that all is well. Rockin', rollin', riding out along the bay, all bound for morning town, many miles away.
Followed by Down Malibu by Blue Mink. A rousing feel-good mood-inspiring song plays that should signify a new start for the expectant Billy and the boys upon their awakening.
Good morning, world, it's a brand new day. I'm packing my bags and I'm getting away. I'm moving my legs and my city time goes. I gotta get away from the busy man's bones. Down on Malibu where the living is so wild and free. If you wanna get happy, then people come along with me. A beep, bow, 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 bow. Roll along, boys, save a place for me. I'm getting so tired of the company. I'm getting black looks from the big white man. I gotta get away just as fast as I can. Down on Malibu where the living is so wild and free. If you wanna get happy, then people come along with me. A beep, bow, 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 bow. Good morning, freedom. I gotta break away, gotta break away, gotta break away. Yeah, yeah. Good morning, freedom. It's another day, it's another day, it's another day. Yeah, yeah. Good morning, freedom. Yeah. A beep, bow, 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 bow.
Dave and Ted make their way into the lounge room, turn on the lounge room light, and Ted then heads for the kitchen to put the kettle on and make some toast before all of them head to work. Dave gives Billy a big shake while loudly calling his name. Wakey, wakey. Hands off Snakey, Billy boy. And tells him to get up and get ready for work. Billy slowly comes around and tells Dave that they don't have to go to work today, or any other day from now on for that matter. Wait until I tell you the flaming news. Billy becomes maniacally alive and starts to sing. We're in the money. We're in the money. If you ask me nicely, I might give you a loan. Oh, we're in the money, we're in the money, tell our mates about it, yes, get them on the phone. Billy is up on his feet and doing a manic jig. Laughing and giggling uproariously and calling out in enthusiastic excitement like Robin Williams. That they were each now loaded with cash. Lovely new, folding green spenders. We won't be treated like shitbags anymore. Not by anybody. Trust me, mate. We are wealthy. Filthy bluey rich. You're not going to believe it. Talk about scooping the pool. Yabba, dabba, bloody do, blue. Princes in our own right. Dave asks Billy what the bloody hell he is on about. Have you been up all night bombing on and letting your imagination run wild? He asks. Billy asks Dave if he heard the enormous racket and commotion that happened earlier in the night. Adding, I noticed that neither of you bothered your ass to come and check on me to see if I was okay. Did you? Nah. What commotion? Asks Dave. It's been as quiet as a graveyard, Bill. You could have heard a bloody mouse fart. What are you talking about? Billy starts to babble on about Louis, making no sense to Dave. Billy tries to tell Dave that they have each been given millions of dollars plus by Billy's new friend Louis. He tells Dave to check out the 3 suitcases that are filled with money. Dave looks about the lounge room but cannot see any suitcases. What suitcases are you talking about? Asks Dave. The ones behind that couch over there. Billy replies. Keenly and confidently. After Dave looks behind the couch and tells Billy that there are no suitcases there. What? Billy shrieks. Billy then looks around the lounge room, behind all the chairs and couches, and he can't see any suitcases. He screams. Okay, you pair of greedy, robbing mongrels. What have you done with the money? I'll cut your sweaty, swinging danglers off if you try to rob me, you filthy pair of swine. I thought we were supposed to be mates. Ted pops his head out of the kitchen and calls out at the same time as Dave. What money? They ask. Billy scowls. The money in the suitcases, assholes. What do you think? What suitcases are you talking about, Bill? Ted asks. Billy accentuates, the 3 dirty big suitcases that Louis, my mate, left here for us as a leg up, says Billy. And who is this Louis guy? They ask. Billy blurts. Louis is the guy who came to visit late last night, and he told me about heaven and hell. Better land. They are told Louis is the real deal. The one and only fair dinkum devil. Old Nick. Lucifer himself. Billy says. And is not a bad bloke after all when you get to know him. He really isn't, babbles Billy. Dave tells Billy that he's been dreaming. There were no suitcases of money and there was no Louis character lurking about the place. Dave insists. Come around, mate, you've just been dreaming, that's all. You fool. And we're going to be late for work. Get a move on. Billy is horrified at Dave's declaration. He howls. Nah. Don't go saying that, Dave. Don't go saying it was only a dream. Oh mate, it can't be, it can't. I felt the money, and I smelled the money, and I kissed the money. Believe me, mate. Billy clasps his hands against his ears and calls out. Shut up, Dave, shut up, mate. Don't say that. Don't say it's dream. I'm not listening. I'm not bloody listening to you. Go away, go away. He starts to sing, but he is mumbling rubbish, trying to distract himself from hearing Dave tell him that he has been dreaming. Ted brings 3 cups of coffee and some toast into the lounge room for their breakfast. Billy is still heavily caught up in his dream. He tells Dave and Ted that if it was a dream, then it was the most realistic and believable dream that he had ever had. He is gutted and choked at the reality of things. He says, "It would only happen to me. Me and my bad luck." Bad Luck by Pabs Mayfield plays.
Not sure you'll understand just what it is I'm thinking. Feeling like a stone that skims the lake and now it's sinking. And I know in time I'll get my breath back and swim shore. And then I'll get my second wind and I'll be back for more. If you think you got bad luck, let me tell you, friend. And if the cat has 9 lives, then I think that I'll need 10. I try my best, but things always turn out wrong. But I pick myself up, dust myself off, and then I'll carry on.
Ted notices the state of confusion that Billy is in. He suggests that he should get Billy a cold glass of water. When Billy replies with, "For Christ's sake, Ted. How much of a shock do you need to get before you qualify for a shot of bloody brandy around here? You miserly tight ass. Can't you see that I'm destroyed here? Worse than that other fella, what was his name? Silly Ray Syphilis with his achy breaky heart. I tell you." Ted tells him that no matter how realistic, wonderful or terrifying a dream is, it is just that. It is us as individuals who create our dreams in our subconscious. There are not any outside or interfering elements involved whatsoever. We just must accept it, mate. Well, hang on, says Dave. What about the Immaculate Conception of Mary? Or that other bloke, Mohammed, the Muslim guy, hey? They both say that they had a dream and were informed of certain supposed factual things. Yes, maybe, says Ted. But how often does it happen, that sort of belief? One such report is from 2,000 years ago. And the other some hundreds of years later when our Muslim brother, Mohammed, had his dream and was convinced that it was a direct message from Allah. You don't seem to get it too often anymore. Yes, Dave, says Ted. That is the whole point. A dream. But no matter how you cut it, it was still a dream that they both had. Yes, invented and created by the individual involved. Dreams are not reality, they are merely a mishmash of what may appear to the dreamer to be reality. Yet sometimes mixed with creative imagination. Whether it be dark, weird, or wildly fanciful. Even psychedelic. It is just how it comes together. Billy tells the boys that he will try to explain it on the way to work. He is finding it really hard to accept that it was only a dream. He keeps on repeating that he can't believe it was only a dream as H tries our th set, making a occasional balking sound as he goes. He is bitterly disappointed. Again, Dave says, "Come on, it was only a silly dream, Billy. Come to terms with it, old mate." Like Daryl in the castle says. Tell him he's dreaming. Billy retorts, "Oh, not you too, Dave. I'm getting sick of that one." Ted says that it's okay, Bill, I've had plenty of weird dreams. That has left me extremely disappointed. He goes on to explain that he has had several of them where he had discovered a wealth of treasure and gold coins, only to wake up and find that it was a dream. And after looking under his pillow for the gold coins and also looking under his bed to only find nothing. He was so disappointed that he wanted to go back into the dream to continue it with all its joy and happiness, such as being able to breathe underwater and flying at will. Tom Petty's Learning to Fly plays. As the track starts to play, Dave and Ted hold their arms out like they are flying and cruise around the set. Billy ponders the song.
Well, I started out down a dirty road. Started out all alone, and the sun went down as I crossed the hill, and the town lit up. The world got still. I'm learning to fly, but I ain't got wings. Coming down is the hardest thing. Well, the good old days may not return, and the rocks might melt, and the seed may burn. I'm learning to fly, but I ain't got wings. Coming down is the hardest thing.
I'm telling you, says Billy. It was super realistic. I couldn't have created it. Not me. Not that shit. Maybe Mary Shelley could have. Look what she did with Frankenstein. That was a case of a dream. But you did, says Ted. And you must take responsibility for creating it. It was probably all that blubbering and talk of religion going on at the pub last night, and that was being mulled over in your subconscious. Probably. Plus, you were well whacked, Bill. Here. You didn't sell him your soul, did you, Bill? Nah. Says Billy. Don't be stupid, Ted. I made sure I didn't. But stuff me. Billy continues. That Louis guy was such an honest-sounding, nice, straight-shooting sort of guy. With no malice, hate, or intent on evil control. Just cool, laid back, and friendly. Like Paul Newman in The Sting. Smooth as. Plenty of sparkle and acceptable personality. A few bars of The Sting plays. I would have never pictured in a million years that old Satan himself could have been such good company. Not from what I have heard and come to believe all my life. Shit, I was taken in and convinced that he was my friend. Oh yes. Sucked in like a dope cone. A full-on pull. Thinking that he was putting me straight on things. Oh, and hands up, I admit that I love the money bit. Yeah, now that really attracted me and really got me in. Yep. Hook, line, and sinker. We were all supposed to be set for life. Never mind, says Dave. At least you kept your mates in mind and made everything fair and square when it came time to divvy the money up. That was decent of you, Bill. Yeah, Bill. Ted adds. What a shame it was only a dream. Millions of dollars plus each, you say. Imagine that. They gather their things and head off to work. Billy is the last one to leave the living room. He turns to the audience and calls out as if talking to an unseen Louis in the lounge room. They are right about you, Louis. You're a lying, motherless creep. And a dirty rotten mongrel. Only intent on causing confusion and doubt. Giving false hope with promises. You rotten, conniving shitbag. Yeah. Well, let's see if I end up in better land as you predicted, shall we, Louis? You just might miss out this time, Lou, old boy. You filthy ratbag. Get back to hell where you belong. Hey. And what if there is nothing at all after death? Yeah. Yes. How about that then, hey? It would mean that you don't really exist. What was it that John Lennon sang? Imagine. Well, I for one can imagine. So up yours, Louis. Mate. My ass you are. Yeah. You can kiss it. Douchebag. Curtain closes to the Jackson Browne song.
I'm gonna rid myself a house in the shade of the freeway. Gonna pack my lunch in the morning and go to work each day. And when the evening rolls around, I'll go on home and lay my body down. And when the morning light comes streaming in, I'll get up and do it again. Amen. Say it again. Amen. I wanna know what became of the changes we waited for love to bring. Were they only the fitful dreams of some greater awakening? I've been aware of the time going by. They say in the end it's the wink of an eye. And when the morning light comes streaming in, you'll get up and do it again. Amen. Caught between the longing for love and the struggle for the legal tender.
Children solemnly wait for the ice cream vendor. Out into the cool of the evening strolls the pretender. He knows that all his hopes and dreams begin and end there. Choose off and fight and tear at the world with all their might, while the ships bearing their dreams sail out of sight. I'm gonna find myself a girl who can show me what laughter means, and we'll fill in the missing colors in each other's paint by number dreams. And then we'll put our dark glasses on, and we'll make love until our strength is gone. And when the morning light comes streaming in, we'll get up and do it again. Get it up again. I'm gonna be a happy idiot and struggle for the legal tender, where the elves take aim and lay their claim to the heart and the soul of the spender, and believe in whatever may lie in those things that money can buy. Oh, true love could have been a contender. Are you there? Say a prayer for the pretender who started out so young and strong, only to surrender.
Expressions of interest pertaining to the leasing of the rights are called for. Contact direct H.K. Mayfield at gmail.com.